In the early years of the 20th century, the race for dominance on the seas was at its peak. The great shipping companies of Britain were competing to build larger, faster, and more luxurious ships than ever before. Out of this competition was born a vessel that would become one of the most famous ships in human history. Her name was RMS Titanic. The Titanic was the pride of the White Star Line, a British shipping company determined to outshine its rivals. Built by Harland and Wolff shipyards in Belfast, Ireland, construction began in 1909 and took nearly 3 years to complete. At the time, it was the largest moving object ever created by mankind. Measuring about 882 feet in length, 92 feet wide, and weighing over 46,000 tons, Titanic was not just a ship, it was a floating palace. What made Titanic so extraordinary was not only its sheer size, but also its design. The ship carried the title RMS, which stood for Royal Mail Ship, because it was contracted to carry mail between Europe and North America. But Titanic was also built to carry passengers in unmatched comfort. For the wealthy elite, the first-class accommodations were nothing short of breathtaking. Imagine grand staircases with intricate ironwork, gilded walls, and sparkling chandeliers. There were luxurious dining rooms, smoking lounges, Turkish baths, and even a heated swimming pool, something unheard of at the time. The second-class cabins, while not as extravagant, were still equivalent to first class on many other ships of the era. Third class, often called steerage, was designed for immigrants seeking a new life in America. Even though their rooms were basic, they were cleaner and more comfortable than most other ships offered. Titanic truly represented hope, opportunity, and luxury all at once. One of the most famous claims about Titanic was that she was unsinkable. While the White Star Line never officially used that phrase, promotional material and newspaper reports suggested it. Titanic had a double-bottom hull and was divided into 16 watertight compartments. It was said that even if 4 compartments flooded, the ship would still stay afloat. This gave passengers and crew a sense of absolute security. On April 10, 1912, Titanic set sail on her maiden voyage from Southampton, England, bound for New York City. She made stops in Cherbourg, France, and Queenstown, now Cove, in Ireland, before heading into the vast Atlantic Ocean. On board were some of the wealthiest people in the world, businessmen, aristocrats, and celebrities, as well as over 1,000 immigrants hoping for a fresh start in America. In total, more than 2,200 passengers and crew were on board. For the first few days, the voyage went smoothly. Passengers enjoyed fine dining, music, games, and conversations. In the third class, people sang folk songs and danced, dreaming of what awaited them in the new world. Life aboard Titanic was filled with excitement and hope. But the Atlantic in April is treacherous. On the night of April 14, 1912, the ship was traveling at nearly full speed through waters known to have icebergs. Despite receiving multiple iceberg warnings from nearby ships, Titanic pressed forward. Captain Edward J. Smith, an experienced seaman nearing retirement, likely believed the ship was safe. After all, this was the great Titanic. At 11:40 p.m., disaster struck. Lookouts in the crow's nest spotted a massive iceberg directly in Titanic's path. The alarm was sounded, and the crew attempted to steer the ship away. But it was too late. The iceberg scraped along the starboard side, tearing open the hull beneath the waterline. In a matter of minutes, several compartments began flooding. At first, many passengers were unaware of the seriousness of the situation. The collision barely felt like more than a bump. But soon, the truth became clear. Titanic was mortally wounded. Within hours, the Unsinkable ship began to sink. The tragedy was worsened by the fact that Titanic carried only about 20 lifeboats, enough for just over half the people on board. Regulations of the time did not require more, and the ship's designers had wanted to preserve space and appearance. When the evacuation began, confusion and disbelief reigned. Some lifeboats were launched half-empty, as many passengers refused to leave the safety of the giant ship for a small wooden boat in the freezing ocean. As the icy waters of the North Atlantic rushed in, panic spread. Families were torn apart as women and children were ordered into lifeboats, while many men were left behind. The band famously continued to play music on deck to calm the passengers, with the hymn, "Nearer, My God, to Thee," often said to be their final piece. By 2:20 a.m. on April 15, 1912, less than 3 hours after the collision, Titanic's lights flickered and the great ship broke apart. Her stern rose high into the air before finally plunging beneath the waves. Over 1,500 lives were lost in the freezing ocean, making it one of the deadliest maritime disasters in peacetime history. Only about 700 survivors were rescued by the nearby ship RMS Carpathia, which arrived hours later. The sinking of Titanic shocked the world. How could the greatest ship ever built, a symbol of human achievement, be destroyed on its very first voyage? Newspapers around the globe covered the tragedy in heartbreaking detail. Stories of heroism and sacrifice emerged, like that of Captain Smith, who went down with his ship, or millionaire John Jacob Astor, who gave up his lifeboat seat for his pregnant wife. The disaster also changed maritime law forever. After Titanic, new regulations required ships to carry enough lifeboats for everyone on board. The International Ice Patrol was established to monitor iceberg dangers. Radio communications were upgraded to ensure ships could call for help more effectively. But beyond laws and regulations, Titanic became a legend. Books, films, and documentaries have told her story again and again. To this day, Titanic is remembered not just as a tragedy, but as a symbol of human ambition, hope, and the fragile line between confidence and overconfidence. In 1985, more than 70 years after her sinking, the wreck of Titanic was finally discovered on the ocean floor by Robert Ballard and his team. Resting about 12,500 feet beneath the surface, the wreck revealed haunting images: broken decks, rusting steel, and personal belongings scattered across the seabed. It was a time capsule, a reminder of the night when dreams and lives were lost. Today, Titanic remains one of the most famous ships in history. Her name stands alongside words like mystery, tragedy, and legend. She was a masterpiece of her time, but her story is also a cautionary tale about human pride and the unpredictable power of nature. The Titanic may have sunk more than a century ago, but her legacy continues to sail on in the hearts and minds of people across the world. From movies to memorials, museums to exhibitions, she lives on as the ship of dreams, a ship that carried not just passengers, but the hopes of an entire generation. And so, the story of Titanic is not just about a ship that sank. It is about the people who lived, the people who died, and the lessons humanity learned from a night of cold water, starry skies, and heartbreaking silence on the Atlantic Ocean. In the early years of the 20th century, the race for dominance on the seas was at its peak.